He was there when the country experienced an attempted coup in 1982 and was detained for several months. He was there when the Ford movement began to agitate for multi-party democracy in 1992. He was instrumental in the removal of President Moi's government and KANU party in 2002. He was there when elections went badly wrong in 2007 and the nation entered one of its darkest moments in history. He's here now with me and a new initiative to define the next phase of Kenyan politics. Right Honorable Raila Odinga, welcome to the NTV Weekend Edition.
Thank you, Joe.
Let me, welcome you with a handshake. The famous one.
Thank you.
Now, you've been in power for, I don't know, you've been in active national politics for pretty much almost 30 years now. My question is, what legacy have you had so far?
Well, legacy, of course, is something that is after you're gone. But I think that I feel that I have made a contribution to change and reform in our country during this period of time.
What kind of changes, what kind of transformation? Just some highlights.
As you know, when we came in first, when the country was turned into a single party dictatorship. It was way back in 1981. By that time, we had been trying to form a party because, as you know, that there was exclusion. KANU was a closed shop. During the election time, some people were not being allowed to run, supposedly because they had not had a change of heart. So when we came together to try to form a party in 1981, they quickly rushed to Parliament and introduced Section 2 of our Constitution, which made the country a de jure one-party dictatorship. That, in my view, is what actually gave rise to what happened in August '82. Then thereafter, of course, as you know, we were arrested. We were then detained. Spent 6 years, that first time, in detention. And when I came out and I stayed away from only 6 months, then I was taken back again for another year. Came out, I spent 1 year outside, and this other time again, I teamed up with Kenneth Matiba and Charles Rubia to press for a repealing of Section 2A. Again, we were arrested, and you know, just on the eve of Sabasaba, and we were taken again to detention. So that was my third detention. And I only escaped a fourth detention by running into exile.
When you went to Norway?
And I went to Norway. But then that was the time when we had started Ford as a pressure group to pressure the government to repeal Section 2A. So I've been outside there, and I've formed a movement outside, supporting the movement internally. And through this combination of the struggle, we managed to have Section 2A repealed. Then I came back from the exile and joined Ford. Then we went for the elections of '92. As you know, unfortunately, the opposition again split before the elections and lost the elections in spite of the fact that we got the majority of the votes. And then thereafter, we pressed for change, because though they repealed Section 2A, they did not remove the laws which had made it easy for the government to oppress the people. And come 96, 97, we put more pressure. No reforms, no elections. Stopping the reading of the budget in 1997, ending up with the IPPG, which then came up with some fundamental change, a repeal of most of those oppressive laws, although the reforms themselves were not sufficient to ensure free and fair elections of that year.
And in all those years, Mr. Odinga, what is your biggest regret?
I think that we made a big regret was the split of the opposition movement in 1992, which was basically because of opportunism and ethnicity. If the opposition had been united, we would have won the elections, particularly the presidential elections.
Because collectively you had enough numbers.
We had the numbers. See, we got 64% of the vote. Moi only got 36%, but he managed to win the presidential vote because ours was split among the three top candidates, Matiba, Kibaki, and Jaramogi. To me, that was a fatal mistake by the opposition. But it also actually signified the divisive nature of our politics, that ethnicity was playing a very, very fundamental role in our society.
An issue we still have today.
Exactly.
Now, I want to take you back briefly to your first detention in 1982. When you were detained for the first time, what was your first night in detention like? What was going on through your mind? What did you do? How did you sleep? What did you eat? What was going on when you were first incarcerated?
You know, I was not detained immediately.
There was
when I was arrested, I was first charged with treason. And I spent 6 months in committee, remand prison, coming to the court every 2 weeks for the mention. But after those 6 months, eventually the state realized they did not have evidence against me. So they entered a nolle prosequi. When they entered a nolle prosequi, then decided to detain me. We were released in the court, taken down to the cells, released, and then when we came out and at the gate there, we were rearrested. And then taken to Langata police station, kept there the whole night. Around midnight, we were brought to Nairobi area police station, where we were served with the detention orders, then transferred back to committee, this time in a different block. So that's now started my detention career.
So during Committee 1, your first experience, what was that like?
Well, the first, in the remand, of course you just remand, but we were called capital remandees, meaning that it is a charge that carries a mandatory death sentence. So you walk here with a red C on your chest, wearing those prison kaptulas. In those days they didn't have trousers.
Which means potentially you could have been on death row.
I was basically on death row. I was on death row, that place. People were not allowed to come and see you. You are isolated from the rest of other remandees, and you are kept in the cells for 23 hours out of 24. You're only allowed out for half a quarter of an hour in the morning, again half an hour at lunch, and again a quarter of an hour again in the afternoon. So most of the times you are in the cells, and you're not receiving any visitors. Then we are now transferred to the detention camp. Here for the first time, at first we were 3 in the detention camp, and we stayed like that for about 9 months, after which we were separated. One of us was released, but the 2 of us are now separated. So I now remained alone. That started my solitary confinement.
And during this time, Mr. Odinga, and the years that followed, you know, all those long periods of detention and so on, your family must have been quite under, you know, a lot of, you know, strain. Were you able to do the ordinary things that, you know, a parent does, like, you know, attending your children's graduation, speaking to their, you know, their class teachers?
No, you are a detainee. First, the communication with your family is fairly restricted. The little communication takes too long. Like, if you write a letter formally, if they write to you a letter, it will take 6 months to reach you. So a Christmas card you'll be receiving in June. Then sometimes you get communication, like when my mother died, for example. My family sent me a telegram to inform me that my mother had passed on. And they kept this telegram for a long, they never gave it to me. But of course, a friend of mine who was also detained had received the information. But then he had communicated via a way of underground communication. So I had known. Now, when this Askari came to eventually now break the news to me, at first he was looking at my reaction, if I would be shocked, because otherwise we'd know that somebody had told me. So when he came to tell me, I artificially burst into tears.
So you had to be a bit dramatic.
Yeah, too dramatic just to me, but I had known about it a long time ago. My brother had asked that I should be allowed to go and bury my mother. But they were telling me 3 months later, yet they received the telegram immediately that my mother had passed on. Okay.
Were you allowed for the burial?
Never. I mean, they're telling me 3 months after the event. So how would you attend the burial? Yeah.
Now, and talking about your family struggles, you had good news in December when your daughter Rosemary Odinga, you know, regained her sight after 2 years. How did you react to that news?
In fact, you know, we had gone with Rosemary to different places. First, you know, she spent quite a bit of time in South Africa in a rehab, and my wife had to actually hire an apartment in Joburg to just attend to her for 3 months. When she came here, she was still not quite good. We sent her to Israel, but found that the facilities there were not fairly, I mean, good for this particular treatment. So she came back. Then we had a Chinese physio who discovered that the operation was not complete, and that what was supposed to have been removed from her brains, her head, was actually regrowing. So he sent this, he did an MRI, and then they discovered this, and he sent the results to a professor in Peking University, who said that this is an emergency. That's how we sent her to China. And in China, they did a wonderful job, that operation, after which she came back. Now she could walk and she could talk without much difficulties. The problem was that the optic eyes had been interfered with during the operation, which took place at Aga Khan Hospital. So now we sent her to an institution in Germany, which said they could treat this, but it was not successful. Then ultimately now people were giving up. But then a friend of mine in India said that there's an institution in India which can actually treat this using traditional medicines. And at first everybody was a little bit apprehensive, saying how we've tried all the best institutions in the world. But this friend of mine was persistent, and Rosemary also had faith. So she went to this institution in Kerala, in India, in Cochin, and spent there 4 weeks. And after that, they use traditional medicine. They grow them there in the institution, insulated.
And so eventually, when she regained her sight.
So what happened? The institution, after she came back here, said it will take about 3 months before her eyesight started improving. After 3 months, they called and asked for her to do some tests. And when she did the tests, the local doctor here told her that actually with these results, if I give you some goggles, you can see. And they ordered these goggles and the optician from Germany. After 1 week, they came and she put them on, and there she was seeing. So she called.
Must have been a big relief for the family.
She told me, Daddy, I can see. You know, I've seen my kitchen, I've seen my bedroom, I've seen my my children. Now I'm seeing the flowers for the first time. It was a big relief for the entire family.
Okay, now let's talk about young people in Kenya today. There were many young lives that were lost in the elections of 2007, 2013, even 2017. There's no compensation at all for these families. The parents and the families are still carrying a lot of that pain. And you yourself, as a father who's lost a son 5 years ago, you can appreciate that kind of pain that these families are going through. Do you ever discuss this kind of issue when you speak to President Kenyatta?
Yes, that is one of the issues that we discussed when we met the other time. And I told him that, look, this thing has caused a lot of pain. Each time we go for an election, people die. In 2007, we lost so many people, innocent people. So people lost in Eldoret, in Nakuru, in Naivasha, in Ruiru, in Kisumu, all over the place. So they come 2000 and this other time, we lost so many other people. In 2013, we just have avoided it because when we went to court, although we did not agree with the court ruling, we said that we respect the judiciary, and that actually calmed things down. But this other time, you remember when I went, after the court had dismissed, had nullified the presidential elections, and I went to the United States. Coming back, I was met by people from the airport. It took us 3 hours to get from the Jomo Kenyatta into the city center because we were fighting tear gas, these water cannons, and bullets. By the time we arrived at Uhuru Park in the city center, we had lost 18 people. And there were so many people with gunshot wounds all over. There's one time we carried these bodies to Ligindogo. We had 38 coffins there, paraded, which we were sending to different parts of the country.
So what will happen to these families?
So I'm saying,
yeah,
the issue of compensation, and these are the issues that we said these are some of the issues that we have in the BBI. So there are issues that we'll raise, and we'll find a way of dealing with them.
Do you think there's a willingness in the Jubilee government to do something for these families?
It's a national conversation. As you know, it's ongoing, and we will find a solution to this. Because what we are trying to do is we are trying to remake Kenya, to create a more responsive, more caring society. There's a number of historical injustices which have taken place in our country, and we must find a way in which we can close the chapter and move forward as a one people. This is our desire.
Now, depression and the whole issue of mental health is one of the biggest challenges facing young people in Kenya today. And a lot of that is because there are just no opportunities. People have lost hope. They don't see where they can turn to earn a living. Do you see this as a priority, this issue as a priority?
You see, what you're talking about, depression, is a consequence of, you should say, depression. I mean, lack of opportunities. So somebody feels frustrated. Somebody had very high hopes. Then all these hopes are now frustrated. Naturally, this person would fall into depression. So what you need to do is to deal with the causative factors which make this person get into depression. Most of them are, for example, joblessness. Somebody has no opportunity. We have got a very high rate of jobless youths today. That's why sometimes you get this suicide becomes very high. Homicides are very high these days because you have a very angry society. We can actually deal with this. And that's why we are talking about economic revolution in the BBI. That is what is going to transform this society.
I'll come to BBI in a moment, but I run a national mentorship program for young journalists, which is broadcast on NTV. And when I interact with these young people, they're saying that what they need is not favors. They're looking for the space and time to earn a living and to make a contribution to nation building. Mm. And they say part of the problem, or one way that that opportunity could be created, is for the older generation to make room. Now, when I look at yourself, you are 75 years of age and you're still pursuing opportunities. Is there hope that soon young people might take over this, including leadership positions, if people, for example, your age, are still seeking to, stay on in other positions for for the coming years?
I think I would make exemption about leadership, because leadership, you don't force yourself. If people don't want you, they will throw you out, because it's an elective position. It's not an appointed position.
But you can decide not to offer yourself for election.
Yeah, you can decide not to offer yourself. And
groom young people.
Younger people, of course, definitely. But I'm just saying, the people are the ones who may make demands that they want you. So if the people don't want you, they will kick you out. You go to Britain, you find members of parliament in the House of Commons. Some of them are even 80, 90 years old. They're still there, and they're still being elected in their constituencies. In the United States, look at those candidates who are running now for the presidency in the Democratic Party. See people, I don't need to mention the names, you know them. So I'm talking about elective leadership as opposed to appointive, because you see, where we need to look for jobs for the youth. But my view is also we're laying too much emphasis on public sector employment, which is a very small fraction. Because after all, how many people can public sector employ the government? Not even 1 million people. And we have got now millions and millions of youth who are on the street. And most of those jobs are actually occupied. You only have people who retire or who die, and that is a small percentage. That's the ones you want to replace. But there are opportunities outside. Look at how other countries have dealt with this kind of situation. You see, we need to think smart. And that's where the opportunities are going to be for our youths. Like you see, the ICT sector, and most of our youth actually are ICT savvy. They can actually do things. You just need to give them access. Call centers, web designs, and all these other things. The youth will be able to create jobs for themselves, okay? And right now, BBI is even proposing Uchumi Mashinani. It's going down to the wards. That is also another way of creating a lot of jobs.
Mr. Odinga, I'll come back for a more detailed discussion on the BBI. For now, we'll take a short break and we'll be right back here with former Prime Minister Raila Odinga at his current residence for further discussions on BBI and other national issues.
Eldoret Technical Training Institute. Registration for January, May and September 2020 intakes is ongoing. Apply now. Eldoret Technical Training Institute. Growing reputation.
Do you have what it takes to become the next generation of great innovators, business magnates, corporate icons, engineers, and renowned researchers? Be part of over 40,000 students pursuing and nurturing their career at Moi University. Enroll now for January, May, and September 2020 intakes for postgraduate, degree, and diploma programs in the following schools: School of Business and Economics, School of Arts and Social Sciences, School of Information Sciences, School of Education, School of Agriculture and Natural Resources, School of Biological and Physical Sciences, School of Tourism, Hospitality and Events Management, School of Aerospace Science, School of Public Health, School of Medicine, School of Engineering, School of Law, School of Nursing, School of Dentistry. Enroll now. Moi University, the foundation of knowledge.
Kwa majina ni Shida Gesanda. Mimi ni mchezaji tu. Ndoto yangu mimi iko nitachezea Harambee Starlet niende ngambo. Nikirudi nitasaidia mamangu kwa shida. Na ninaona hii ndoto itaanza na betika na community.
Hii timu yenye hii msichana yangu anachezea, tulianza tukiwa na maono, tunataka tukuze talents ya wasichana, sababu wasichana huwa wanabaki nyuma na wanaenda ma street.
We are very excited because every time we see the excited faces of the young players when they get their kids and their new balls, it gives us a urge to continue investing in the communities.
Betika na community iliongeza morali kwa timu ya Gusii Starlet mpaka wakapiwa mtu mabao 23. Tukiwa na Betika na community, hii timu itaenda mbali, itacheza premier na watoto watajisaidia.
Kupika kila mtu ajipikie yake. Na vyombo za nani? Kwa nani?
Am I not getting some?
Ice cream ya wageni. Wewe nitakuletea maji kwa jikoni.
A girl's gotta eat to keep up with you, Mr. Guns.
Well, that's absolutely correct.
This festive season, get a decoder with subscription at an unbelievable festive offer of only 1,499 shillings. You can also pay 1 month and enjoy 2 weeks free on a higher bouquet. For more information, call 0719 077 077.
Star Times. Enjoy digital life.
Molfix breathable surface developed with airsoft technology is very soft and provides the best Molfix skincare.
And for the best diaper for my baby's sensitive skin.
All babies deserve a high-quality diaper. You should also try Molfix.
Did you know? We've steered over 500,000 youth across the continent to brighter futures. Absa Group, serving Kenya as Barclays.
Oh no, mteja.
Sasa ruhusa ya kuchukua mapicha hapa mmepewa na nani? Sasa ukifika kweli na kamera wewe ni nani?
I don't know. Money in fly. I wish you could capture that.
One of the sources, I won't mention who, wanted us to grease their palms, give them some money for information.
We are from Colombia. I'm Camilo, he's Alejandro, and you are watching Top Story.
Welcome back to a live national conversation with Right Honourable Raila Odinga, former Prime Minister. And we've got a few issues to cover. Just before we talk about BBI, I want to ask you a question about William Ruto, the Deputy President. When did you start first interacting with Ruto? Was that in your days in Parliament, the first time?
Yes, I think when William was elected as a member of Parliament for Eldoret North, he came to Parliament. That was the first time that we met physically. Yeah, that is 1978, to be exact.
Now, this was a man you trusted enough to even allow him to be a member of the Pentagon, chief agent of, during the elections, and, even in the negotiating team in the difficult days of 2008. What happened?
Yeah, well, we had, of course, worked together first in New Kanu when I was the Secretary General. And he was the organizing secretary. So we knew each other from that time. Then, of course, we left Kanu and we formed the Rainbow Coalition, ultimately the LDP, Rainbow. And then we eventually teamed up with the National Party of Kenya to form the National Rainbow Coalition. But then, as you know, we went for elections. And after the elections, they were in the opposition. Kanu was in the opposition, and NAC was in government. Then there was disagreement over the constitution. We remember there had been an MOU which had been signed when we were forming NAC, and that was not honored. And the issue of the constitutional review became contentious. Then there was disagreement at Bomas, as you know. Ultimately, we were going to face a referendum, and there was a division. And that's how we reached out to Kanu, which was in the opposition. They were there in the opposition, but they were very uncomfortable because they are not used to being in the opposition. So when I approached them, I said, look, if we team up together, we can actually be able to defeat this constitution, because it is not the draft which Kenyans had negotiated at Bomas. So that was our engagement. And when we engaged, then we managed to defeat that draft.
But what led you to fall out with William Ruto?
It's really falling out. I don't know that you can call it really a falling out. Well, what happened was I appointed William Ruto as Minister for Agriculture, because, we were together, and he was part of the negotiating team on our side as ODM, together with James Orengo, Sally Kosgei, Musalia Mudavadi, and that is our team that was negotiating. So when we were negotiating a joint cabinet, because ODM was getting 50% and PNU 50%. I had my list of ministers, and the other side was not very comfortable with the name William Ruto. They told me that they didn't want him in the cabinet.
So you dropped him?
But I told them that you will not choose for me whom I'm appointing as a minister. And appointed him as a minister. In fact, the biggest docket that I had through those negotiations of portfolio sharing was Minister of Agriculture. And I appointed him as a Minister of Agriculture. Okay, so And he worked hard as a Minister of Agriculture. But then there came this problem, you know, the maize crisis. And when investigations were done by PricewaterhouseCoopers, they came up with results which showed that there had been some irregularities, very glaring irregularities, and the minister bore some responsibilities. And therefore took the act of suspending the minister so that investigation could be carried out. And my partner at that time, of course, things had changed because ICC was also there. And so my partner, Mr. Kibaki, said I had not consulted him. But I was not sacking him.
You did not sack him?
I was just suspended him to allow investigation to be conducted professionally, okay? Because it had been said that the NCPB had been instructed by the minister to give the maize to members of parliament to sell to the millers. The millers were complaining that they were buying maize at an exorbitant price, and that's why the price of unga had actually gone up.
So today, where are things? Do you talk with DP William Ruto?
Yeah, we greet each other. Our relationship are basically cordial. Have no serious issues with him. I mean,
you say don't have serious issues. When we spoke to him on Thursday, he kept bringing up your name, even asking us, you know, were those questions sent by Raila or Odinga? So would you say you are friends with William Ruto at the moment?
I would say that I don't hate him as a person.
Do you like him?
Okay, the issues are that there are certain things that he's done or he does that are basically contrary to what I think would be the correct ways of doing things.
What do you mean by things he does?
You see, for example, he is the deputy president, and he knows very well that in this country we had conducted an investigation. Parliament had a select committee led by Koigi Wamwere that carried out investigations about Harambee, and came up with that Harambee was actually a source of corruption, and that therefore we should actually ban Harambees. And Harambees were banned. That's why under my administration with Kibaki, there were no Harambees. Then he decided to resurrect Harambees, and he's running around every weekend donating money whose sources are dubious. In my view, this is corrupting the political process.
So you don't think he's out to help these communities that he gives donations to?
No, helping is a different issue. The issue is that what is the source of the money that he's donating? You see? Because, you know, as somebody who is a public servant, you are not supposed to be in business. When I became Prime Minister, Kibaki demanded of me that I must resign from all the business positions that I held. Okay? Now you'd ask yourself, what kind of business does William Ruto own, which makes those millions which he produces every week? 52 weeks in a year. He contributes not less than 5 million shillings every weekend.
The president himself sends donations to some of these events, so is the president also doing something wrong?
I know for a fact that the president does not produce a penny. Ruto produces the money and says he has been sent by the president. But I know that that is not true. The president feels very embarrassed.
So
the other day...
So if these Harambes are not genuine, Mr. Odinga, what do you think is the purpose of these donations?
Because corrupting political process, to show that this man is a God-fearing man, he loves the church, he loves the people, And that's why he's coming with money to donate. You see, if you do a lifestyle audit of Mr. William Ruto, of course you'll find that most of the money's source is questionable. And that's what the only issue, the issue I have with him. Otherwise, I have no serious personal issues.
Can you see a day when he might possibly become the president of this country?
Yeah, I mean, why not? If the people of Kenya elect him as president, who am I to say no?
Would you work with him?
That's another question. Another question altogether. You know that my values are very clear, and so before I get into any kind of relationship, I would question.
Because of those things, and you say your values differ from his, people feel that your current position or relation with President Uhuru Kenyatta is essentially sidelining the Deputy President William Ruto.
I really, Uhuru Kenyatta is the president, William Ruto is the deputy president. Uhuru Kenyatta is the leader of Jubilee, Ruto is his deputy. So I'm not interfering. I'm not in government. I'm not in Jubilee. I'm completely out here. So,
but you're quite influential in the Jubilee government because of your relationship with President Uhuru Kenyatta.
I don't know about influence, because as you know, I don't make decisions. The president is very competent in making decisions. So I don't get involved, I don't discuss issues of the government with the president. I don't discuss issues of Jubilee with the president. You see, unlike when I was with Kibaki, we were in government. We were running a government together, and we were consulting regularly on government issues, because I was the one who was coordinating and supervising the functions of the government. See, but today, I don't do governmental work.
So we're a little bit confused about your role. You're not an elected leader, but there is a BBI initiative. So what are you exactly? Because you say you have no influence. That's what you're saying. But what are you? What is your role exactly?
You see, BBI is because, as you know, we came together with the president to resolve the issues. As you know, we went for elections on the 7th of August. The Electoral Commission announced results, which we contested in court. And the court, having looked at the evidence that we presented, nullified the presidential elections. Okay? So after the court nullified presidential elections, then they ordered that there would be repeat elections. And the Electoral Commission then set the October 26th for a repeat presidential elections. Then we decided, after the Electoral Commission refused to do the kind of reforms that we wanted before the repeat elections, not to participate in those elections. So the October 26th elections were, the president ran alone against himself. And then he was declared the winner. You know the issue of the turnout. Then ourselves, after that, we accessed the server of the Electoral Commission, which was in France. And we got also the results, which we published. And then we said that on the basis of this, we are going to swear in. So we went to, a president was sworn in at Kasarani. We went ourselves to Uhuru Park. And also we were sworn in.
On the basis of the results that you had, of your own results?
Yes. So now, there was a crisis. Because our people now say that,
but
look,
you caused the crisis.
We did not cause the crisis.
We had demonstrations, we had riots, yes. The country was almost ungovernable.
Yes, because the people are angry.
You didn't stop them from going onto the streets?
Why would you stop them when they felt that they were not been unfairly treated?
So destruction of property and lives lost, that was okay by you?
The people were not destroying properties. Remember, they were counter. Like the people were demonstrating. Peaceful demonstrations, by the way, are allowed world over. You see the people who are demonstrating on the street of Togo or of Venezuela and so on and so forth. So we are peaceful demonstration, but remember there were also
to put pressure on
another group called Nairobi businessmen,
right,
who are coming out armed, escorted by the police. You see, so our people lost lives in the process. It is not that our people were destroying property.
Do you regret those demonstrations and protests and loss of life?
You see, it was fairly regrettable that it had to come to that. You see, but what was happening was that the people had no other option. Remember, people had drawn maps, different maps of Kenya. Some people now say, let us divide, let us secede. That was very, very pregnant in the mouth of very many Kenyans.
So is it right to say that without those protests or demonstrations, there would have been no BBI today?
So what happened was that we had a crisis. But they say that every crisis also offers an opportunity.
And you took the opportunity.
So what happened was, in the midst of those, the opportunity was to talk. And we talked.
Just to clarify, who initiated the move for the handshake or for that between yourself and President Kenyatta?
Some good Samaritans. Who
are they Kenyans?
They're Kenyans. They're Kenyans, and they talked to me. And I told them, under these conditions, I'm ready to talk. But if not, I will not talk. And then, ultimately, the conditions were met, and we talked. And we met just the two of us. There was nobody else, no intermediary.
Was William Ruto present?
No.
Was he part of these negotiations at all?
Not at all. Not at all. That's why I was shocked and surprised when he mentioned this, that I had approached him.
Why would he say on a live national program on NTV that you reached out to him first before you reached to the president?
That is very unethical. Because, I mean, why would I even call Ruto? I never called Uhuru. Why would I call Ruto? I never did. So that I can swear, I never talked to William Ruto. Okay? But the good Samaritans themselves know themselves.
So now, there are politicians, quite a number of politicians, Mr. Odinga, who find you unreliable. You fell out with former Vice President the late Kijana Wamalwa. You fell out with President Moi. You fell out with your former NASA coalition colleagues, Kalonzo Musyoka, Musalia Mudavadi, Moses Wetangula, and also Ruto. People don't just feel that they can trust you to carry a deal to the end.
Circumstances, different circumstances. I did not, with Michael, with Kijana Wamalwa, we fell out initially because of the golden bag. That is what had not been known. And the reports were there. I disagreed in the committee. I did not disagree with Michael Wamalwa alone. I disagreed in the committee to make a recommendation that Patni be paid another 2.5 billion shillings. And I wrote a memo to the committee, which is on record. You can see it, stating why I disagreed. And thereafter, I went to court. I took then George Saitoti to court with Kajwang. Then the Attorney General was called to come and take over my case and enter nolle prosequi. After that, Ford Kenya convened an emergency PG. And that emergency PG, they decided to kick me out of the Public Accounts Committee. I was thrown out. That was the cause of our disagreement. And that's why eventually I, said we need to do a party election. I am the one who proposed Michael Omala Kijana initially as the vice chairman of the party. I'm the one also who proposed his name to take over from Jaramogi. So what reason would I have? It was the disagreement was on the Goldenberg. The other one of Ni Moi, I told him, look, let us do a nomination fair. Then if your candidate wins, there will be no problem. Since he did not want to do that, I resigned.
So you had to go your way?
Yes. With the other one here in Ni was the MOU which we all signed, and that was not honored after the elections. And they have even owned themselves. The other side, the other time, my colleagues, we formed a coalition. Electoral coalitions.
This is with Kalonzo and
yes,
Musalia?
Yes. There are two forms of electoral coalitions. Pre-election coalition and post-election. Pre-election coalitions are formed in presidential systems to consolidate the votes to win the presidency. If you form the government, then you now share positions, and all that is put in the memorandum. The post-elections are usually in parliamentary systems, when no party gets sufficient seats to form a government of its own.
So which agreement did you have with this?
It was a pre-election pact.
In other words, after the election, that was it?
After elections, if you win, then you share the positions as enshrined in the agreement. If you don't win, of course, then the coalition does not exist. So you see, a coalition is not a party. There are different political parties.
Did they understand that?
Then definitely they must understand that.
So now let me ask you about your relationship now with President Uhuru Kenyatta. You're working closely on the Building Bridges initiative. First of all, given that you had taken your oath yourself, do you recognize Uhuru Kenyatta as the President of Kenya?
We discussed these issues, and I said, I don't have to be the President of Kenya. What we need is to fix what you call the Kenyan problem, so that we can have a united country. We had a long discussion with Uhuru before we shook hands. And we agreed that he will be the president. I said we will work together to transform the country together, so that we can be able to bequeath to the future generation a united country, so that this country can move towards realization of the Kenyan dream as coined by the founding fathers of our nation.
So in terms of where we are at the moment, do you today recognize Uhuru Kenyatta as President of Kenya?
Yes, I do.
You do?
Yes.
But you've not denounced the oath you took at Uhuru Park. I know it was not official because there were no instruments of state, but you've never actually denounced that oath.
We did, when we shook hands, we did that. Okay?
That was the moment of saying goodbye to that oath?
Yes. We were starting a new chapter.
Right.
Okay? Yes.
Now, back in 1970, you addressed a press conference. You were a lecturer at the University of Nairobi, urging President Jomo Kenyatta then to release Mzee Jaramogi, the late Vice President. So what kind of feelings do you have about the Kenyatta family today, given what they have put your family through, especially the late Jaramogi?
You see, we have had a long relationship with the Kenyatta family. It started way back in 1952, when Jaramogi invited Kenyatta to come to Kisumu and Then Kenyatta, after Jaramogi, then seconded Oneko to become Secretary General of KAU. Then they were arrested and taken to Kapenguria and imprisoned, eventually detained. So Jaramogi maintained contact with the families of Oneko and family of Kenyatta. That's why when Jaramogi went to Legico that time, he raised Kenyatta's issue in 1958, the bombshell in the house, and championed the struggle to get Kenyatta released from detention. Ultimately, Kenyatta was released. You see, Jaramogi was alone in that motion which he moved in the house. The others disowned him. But eventually, Kenyatta was released and became the president. Jaramogi was his deputy. And they worked very well. And Kenyatta was a very frequent visitor in our home, even us in their home. Then the disagreement which came was over the land issue. I don't want to go deeper into that issue. And then when they split, then the opposition dissolved and came and joined KANU, ultimately took over KANU. Jaramogi resigned, Mboya was assassinated, and then now, eventually KANU took over. And the consequences are known. But you remember when Kenyatta died, Jaramogi went to State House, and you would see Jaramogi standing against the corpse of Kenyatta.
Yes.
And waving his fly whisk and talking. He talked deeply about Kenyatta. And he said that these people took Kenyatta away from me. Okay? So, even at death, Jaramogi still considered Kenyatta his friend.
So given that history of the two families, so we should not be surprised why you and Uhuru Kenyatta can work closely together.
Yes, I mean, we have been on different sides of the political divide, but we still have maintained the relationship right through. Okay? So it was natural. I mean, even the kids been meeting and so on and so forth. So we understand that sometimes you may not be on one side politically, but that does not mean that you create enmities between families. Okay? Even when that was happening, the Uhuru families, sisters and so on, they come to visit us here. My kids also meet with them. So we don't have a problem. We didn't have a problem. When we say, look, you cannot undo the past.
The history, yeah.
You cannot undo the history, but you can correct the mistake that was made in the past.
Now you have a new initiative, BBI. In a nutshell, in simple terms, what is BBI all about? The Building Bridges Initiative, what is it really all about?
You see, the BBI was, we said, look, let us look beyond just the paper things. You see, we have a new constitution. In fact, it took us a long time to prepare that constitution. The disagreement at Bomas, was just over two chapters. Then we disagreed. Later on, they went to Naivasha. Naivasha document, the agreement on those chapters was just a firefighting. So that is a work which is unfinished.
So is this meant to remedy?
Not just that. There are many other things. Which, you have the institutions. These institutions are still not working. You have a new constitution. It is not working. So what is it that needs to be done to ensure that these things are working? What is amiss? That is the question that we put to ourselves. Then we identified other things and we said, look, let us look at all this and come up with something that will create an enabling environment to ensure that all this that is not working, this is working. You see, you've got the judiciary, which is supposed to be independent, yet you have got these challenges. The executive and the judiciary have an issue. Okay, you have an issue with all these independent commissions which have been set up, which are gobbling a lot of money. What is it? What are the net results out of all this? With the institutions we have, there should be no corruption. That look at the corruption index as produced by Transparency International. We're still one of the highest. We are playing in the Super League of corruption. The issues of ethnicity. You see, our national anthem says, "We may dwell in unity, peace and liberty." Why do you have a problem?
The things you mentioned, Mr. Odinga, which are in the document, which I have read, are all very clear. Trouble is, for a lot of Kenyans, BBI is just another burden on them. They do not understand what benefit it brings to the ordinary Kenyan. They see it simply as a vehicle for politicians to essentially enrich themselves. Now they talk about a third tier of government where you have regional presidents, you have you have governors, you have MCAs. At the moment, this agenda is in the hands of politicians, and for the ordinary person, they just see this as a necessary burden, especially because some of these things are already catered for in other in other institutions or other documents like the Constitution. Do you not feel that you are punishing Kenyans by imposing the BBI?
That the media, that is the version which is being propelled by the media. I talk to Kenyans. We just held 3 major rallies. That's the face of Kenya. It's going other there. But those who come there are Kenyans too. I don't know where the media get this other impression. They believe strongly.
But the ones who are fighting for that document are politicians. They're the ones on the podium saying, yes, we would like power to be divided in this way, and this way you've got governors seeking to extend into a third term through other means.
You cannot have a public rally where the whole public talk. There must be a few people talking. If you had, for example, yesterday in Mombasa, 30,000 people or 50,000, you expect all of them to be talking. There must be a few people talking. You see? So sometimes this media in this country, I don't know where to get these facts from.
When the other side of the BBI, let me call them, people who are allied to William Ruto, say they have no problem with the BBI, and people who are allied to the Jubilee government and others saying we have no problem with this, why is it necessary to conduct all these public meetings, spend millions and millions of taxpayers' money, when actually, if Kenyans want this thing to pass, they will actually pass it? Why do we have to go into that wastage of resources?
Another thing, how much do you think we spent in Mombasa yesterday? But the media has spread the propaganda, this thing is millions and millions. Which millions are these ones you're talking about?
As we understand it, there's
those people who come there don't need to be transported. They come themselves, they walk into the meeting. All you have there is a podium and a PA system.
There's a budget set aside for the task force, the BBI task. That is taxpayers'
money. You're talking about 10 billion shillings.
Yes.
Where is that? Who has spent that 10 billion shillings?
So it's not true.
It's not true.
So BBI will be run without a budget?
I really wish the media in this country can care to find the facts. Because it mislead the people. They say they've spent 10 billion. That means who was spending those billions? Now where is that billion coming from? This is not true. This thing is being done very cheaply, very, very cheaply indeed. We are so wasteful in this country. Like the Kenyan election, for example, cost per election, per ballot in Kenya is over $7. In the US, it is 40 cents. In Europe, it is 70 cents. So Nigeria is the one that follows Kenya at $4 per ballot.
We do our
That's
stuff
why
expensive.
like this referendum which is coming, does not need to cost more than 3 billion shillings.
But there are other costs, Mr. Odinga. You talk about the referendum. In Kenya, election seasons are very costly for the economy. The economy slows down because of the uncertainty and potential instability. We've just had 2 elections not too long ago in 2017. You're now proposing a referendum which will further slow down this economy, followed maybe in another year or 2 by another election in 2022. This is very, it's very difficult on the economy.
Yes, Joe, I agree with you totally. I want to invite you to believe with me that there's no country in the world that is like Kenya. You cannot replicate Kenya. The issues really which we need to address, for example, electoral violence, and which causes the uncertainty. You see, we have a cycle here where 1 year before the elections, the economy almost shuts down. The investors are scared, they don't know what's going to happen, there's uncertainty. And then a year after the elections, again, the economy is still not working. So you've got 2 years that you spend when the economy is not working.
So now you're making it worse with the referendum.
And you see what I'm trying to say, that, no, that's what we want to cure. You know, recently, they had an election in the UK, just last month. You see, and the country is working. So even before that, they dissolved it and just said, we are going to go for an election. And they went, the results were announced, and they're moving on. And if you look at what they spent, compared to what we spent here, it's far much less than what we spent as a country.
And you feel BBI will fix that?
It must fix that. That's why we're talking about divisive elections, okay? So let's look at this way. When we talk about power sharing, that is a structure of governance that exists virtually all over the world, okay? So we need to look at it in a much more broader terms, because the issues, you go to a country like Tanzania, they don't have the issue of ethnicity, which we have here in this country. So you must understand that the country, that the society that we are leading here is a very brutal society, a very unjust society, a very unfair society, where because it is you've worked in this place here for 20 years, somebody who comes from a community who is correct, comes from somewhere there, you want to create a position with them, you are sacked from this position where you've been for 20 years, you have a family, you know, they cannot ever get another job which is pensionable at your age because you now have advanced and so on. This is happening in this country. These are serious issues that we must address as a country, as a people. So okay? And also the issues of governance up there. When people are talking, we want to expand the executive, or you're trying to create jobs for the people. It's not a question of creating the jobs for the people. You're trying to create a government that is more encompassing. That means, because you already have the people, you have 2 people up there.
So, just on that point about one of the recommendations, which is to expand the executive, possibly, you know, position of Prime Minister, where do you see yourself in that structure?
I don't see myself in that structure at the moment. I've never said that I want to be in any of those positions. We are talking about Kenya as Kenya. Me and Uhuru, we are not looking at ourselves in the mirror of ourselves. What role are we going to play in this government? We are trying to look at a structure that meets the requirement of the people of Kenya. And you know, when we were at Bomas of Kenya, which is a conference that went for a much longer time, we had positioned there in Bomas of Kenya. We had a mixed system of government in Bomas. We had a president and a vice president, we had a prime minister and 2 deputy prime ministers. That was after very exhaustive debate and discussion among the...
So just to be clear, Honorable Odinga, What will your role be after, assuming the BBI passes the referendum and is implemented? What will be your role, or what will be your place?
Myself, I've got many things to do here. You've just been asking me why should I not leave it for the younger people, okay? So
will you leave it for younger people?
I've said I've never said I want to be anything after, I mean, in the 2022. I've not.
Do you have any plans for running for any seat in 2022 elections?
That is not a subject I want to talk about. I've said it. I'm not talking about 2022. We're talking about BBI.
BBI is also leading to 2022. These changes are meant to affect.
I've told you, I've not said that I want to be anything.
So when people name you as a potential prime minister?
That's their wish. I have no power to stop them from talking.
What about Uhuru Kenyatta, as far as you know? What's his future? Because you're in this together. The two of you are in this together. What's his role after 2022?
He has said it. He has said it clearly, but I don't want to speak for him. Okay, I guess you will go and have an interview with him and ask him.
So, what come 2022 or after that? So the title of His Excellency President Raila Amolo Odinga, that title is a title you would not carry in this country in the future?
I've said I don't want to talk about 2022.
For the moment.
Can we move to another topic?
Right. Now, just to conclude that, you told us once that you had only one bullet left.
I've never told you. The other people were saying this. Me, I never talked about it.
You don't want to talk about that either?
No.
Right. Now, let me bring you to something else completely different as we went up on BBI. The Kenya National Bureau of Statistics indicates that 24% of Kenya's labor force is either unemployed or underemployed, which means that out of every 100 people, 24 either don't have a job, or potential for work. What are your thoughts about creating employment to address, this unemployment issue, or generally?
Yeah, I've said it before that we need to think out of the box, okay, and find ways and means through which we can create jobs. The BBI is talking about uchumi mashinani as part component of economic revolution in this country. That will mean that you bring down the capital to the wards and make it accessible to the people at the wards to do some business with. And as I mentioned earlier on, also in the field of ICT, you know that the world has changed. The world has become smart. And we have got a youth which is actually very ICT savvy. With just a small gadget, like even a smartphone like this, you can do many things these days. You don't have to go to a physical place of work like used to happen in the old traditional society. People can work from home, you see? So in other words, if you make them the ICT centers, that they can be able to access the internet, they can be able to create jobs, whether it is web design or you call it call centers and so on and so forth. They can create quite a number of jobs, our youth. So this is another area where the opportunities exist. With the very little in the rural areas, you can create a lot of jobs. The agriculture is fairly elastic. I mean, it's not fairly elastic. There's an elastic limit to agriculture in terms of employment, because when you come up with modern equipment and so on, then less and less people are employed in the field of agriculture. But you need to also move in agriculture and to create food so that you become self-sufficient in food production. But I believe clearly that there are opportunities that we are wasting, like setting up also these industrial parks and special economic zones will also create quite a lot of jobs for our youth in some of our urban areas, so that we deal with urban unemployment and also rural unemployment at the same time.
And just as you continue the work of sensitizing people on BBI, the kind of rally we saw in Mombasa, are we to expect more of these?
Yes, we are going this coming weekend on the 1st of February to Kitui. And then from that there we will go to, on the 15th of February, we'll go to Meru. And thereafter we'll go to Nakuru on the 22nd of next month. Thereafter we'll go to Garissa on the 23rd of next month. And then after that we'll go to Nyeri, and then finally we come to Nairobi. Will you
continue to make it an exclusive place in terms of accommodating people on the other side of
yes, certainly.
Of BBI?
We will be accommodating everybody in these meetings. What people have not understood, these village meetings we're having are not just rallies like yesterday. They are preceded by a conference. Like on Friday, there was a conference in Mombasa where there were nearly 3,000 delegates from different counties, all the 6 counties of the coast. And these delegates are taken through the BBI by an expert who explain to them, and then they discuss and also come up with issues which are regional specific. Like you saw, the memorandum which was read was as the result of the discussions which the delegates had. So when they come to these rallies, the memorandum is first read to the congregation so that they can hear what the delegates discussed. Then after that, then a question is put to them, whether they approve or not. See, the thing is that it is easier way of getting more people involved in this matter than saying, leave it to people, let people read it. How many people read that document, 190 pages? You're being told print copies enough, millions of copies, so that people can read it. Who will read it? And most of it available for those who can read. It's available on online, okay? And you remember, we also produced a special bulletin, which was put in the newspaper, you know, and circulated countrywide just before we launched it. People had opportunity to read it. So, but most people will read it. And that's why we have these discussions.
And now, we mentioned how some Kenyans, ordinary Kenyans, feel a little bit left out. And speaking to some ODM supporters, I think they were expecting some benefits from your initiative to join up with President Uhuru Kenyatta in the BBI. In fact, the words they use is that you are there alone, but you've not carried that to the constituency. Some of them are saying, but you know, we saw recent reshuffle of the cabinet, and there was not a single person appointed, for example, from ODM. And their words were, inaonekana baba anakula peke yake amesahau watoto.
First, I have not even been paid my my entitlement as a retired prime minister. Okay, I'm not in this thing here for eating or anything. I'm here for posterity. I'm not in government, so I don't make appointments. If I were in government, then somebody will write to accuse me of leaving ODM people out. ODM is not part of this government. We are.
So this is a personal initiative.
Yes. No, we are working on BBI because of what has happened. We want to correct the historical past so that we can lay a firm foundation for us to move forward as one nation. This is what we are doing. So it's a sacrifice. And in order to bring some changes, there must be some sacrifices. So I've been told my people, they must bear with us on this one here. We must go through this phase so that things will be better tomorrow. Yes.
Now, we talked about Ruto earlier, and I'm not going back into that. One question that's constantly asked, and we ask this of all the leaders that we speak to, how much is Honorable Raila Odinga worth, and in billions?
No, they're saying that Raila Odinga is so rich, very, very rich, which is not true. Okay?
How rich are you?
I think about 2 billion shillings.
2 million? 2 billion?
Yes.
That is not rich?
Not very rich.
2 billion shillings?
Yes.
Wow.
Just in terms of properties.
Right.
Yeah.
That's all that you own, and essentially your wealth comes from just property?
Yes. I also got some shares in some companies.
So what is rich if 2 billion is a hustler's kind of?
I'm saying in terms of, not in cash.
Right.
This is in terms of shares or in terms of, yeah, basically. Okay? If you say like this house will be something like 300 million shillings, okay? Or something like that. So that is what it is. Yeah.
Now, suppose the other thing about sort of declaring your wealth or saying how much you own. People feel, now I'm talking about your constituency in Luo Nyanza, that in a lot of things that happen, it is Raila Odinga himself and his family who reap the benefits. Some of the areas in Luo Nyanza still have very low levels of development and poverty. Whatever benefits that you derive out of your national stature, your initiatives, do not really trickle down to the people, especially in Luo Nyanza. What would you say to that?
What would you say? What we get? Say that again.
People who, your constituency, the people of Luo Nyanza, feel that even though you enjoy this national stature, even including these initiatives like the BBI and so on, they do not feel those benefits don't trickle down. You still have very high levels of poverty in some of the places in Luo Nyanza. They just feel that the benefit goes to Raila Odinga and the Odinga family, but does not really reach out to a much wider population.
There's nothing that Odinga family gets. Odinga family has not gotten anything. Okay? I've told you what I've told you is what we worth collectively. Okay? What we own collectively. Odinga family does not benefit anything. All the Odinga family descendants are either working and living just on their own salaries. So there's nothing at all. Like as we are sitting here, for example, now, I have no salary you can talk about, okay, that I'm earning. My brother, Buru, is actually just in Arusha. He would not be in Arusha if he had other wealth elsewhere which he can get or which he owns. He would be sitting pretty. You see, all my sisters are working wherever they're working. One is a lecturer at the University of Nairobi. The other one is...
And you've not influenced these positions or appointments?
No. Appointed professionally. All of them are appointed professionally.
I think the reason there is this sentiment is because, again, people in Luo Nyanza feel that they have suffered a lot on account of your name, in terms of very oppressive regimes that have come in, cracking down on you. So they also suffer. And so they feel that if there are any benefits, then they also need to see the light.
But look, there are no benefits. As things are, whatever little we have, we should always share with our people. And they know it, they understand it very well. There's nothing is hidden. What little that we have, we always share with the people. We don't have much. Jaramogi died himself a very poor person. He used to know. Jaramogi was in government only for 2.5 years and lived in the opposition for the rest of his life. Okay? Only from the time he was kicked out of parliament and detained, he was in the opposition, just doing little business here, farming and so on throughout. So there's nothing we have inherited as the Odinga family, very, very little. I worked myself. I started my own business, which is employing people in industrial area here. And we've done, whatever we've done in very good faith. We've invested in, for example, in the molasses factory. Molasses is not working right now because the sugar mills are not working. There's no molasses to use to make ethanol. The government has not started the business of blending. So that is another challenge. So we are doing, but what we're doing for the benefit of the people, not just of the people of Nyanza, people of Kenya generally. I am concerned about people of the coast. I'm concerned about the people of the eastern, central. Remember, I was raising the issue of tea recently, last year, that the tea farmers are having serious issues, problems. Just like the milk farmers, I also raised the issue of milk, and now the government is taking some action about milk. I've talked about the issues of coffee farmers. I've talked about the issues of the cotton, reviving of the cotton industry, the issue of sugarcane, which is a major challenge. The issue of fishermen in Lake Victoria is a major issue. We are right now actually reopening the Kisumu port, but we're also reviving most of those old ports which have became dormant, like the Kindu Bay, Homa Bay, Asembo Bay, Karungu Bay, Mehuru Bay, Port Victoria, Sio Port, South Bay, all these.
So there's work being done?
There's work being done.
Now, ODM elections, will they happen in March or soon?
No, we have revised because of the ongoing, this BBI issue. We don't want to mix the party election with this one here. So we said we will postpone them until we are finished with this issue of BBI, because we don't want to hold party elections in the midst of this. There's a lot of acrimony in party elections. So we will revise.
Is there a new date for the ODM elections?
We are going to have a NEC, National Executive Committee meeting, which will review and then set up a new date. Okay.
Any steps you've taken to avoid a repeat of the past? The ODM elections have been pretty chaotic. The next ones that will come, have you taken any steps to ensure that they will be orderly, that they will be fair?
You see, it's not being chaotic. There have been issues in elections, and this cut across all political parties. Others do not have many members, so there's not much wrangling. That's why they can quietly hear you are told such party has already finished its elections. But ODM elections is a general, almost like a general election. So we set up a task force last year, led by Mrs. Muma, to look into the party generally. What is it that is wrong? Why did we not perform very well, for example, in parliamentary elections and in civic and in so on and so forth? And why were there issues in the nomination? Nomination was one of the causes. But this is not only us. Even the Labour Party of the UK found that their nominations were a problem. That's why they're losing election to the Tories. Then
will you address concerns that there is corruption that goes on in the nomination process of the ODM party?
It's not
that candidates have to offer an envelope to get nominated.
It's not true. In maybe isolated cases. But what is happening is that there's so many, because in some places the nomination is almost the election. So the stakes are very high. And therefore people hire goons, for example, to block their opponents from participating in the elections, or hijack the presiding officer, or burn ballot papers, ballot boxes, and things like those. So we have found a way of dealing with that, and we've also realized, remember, the coalition which we were having also made us lose a number of seats. Because like here in Nairobi, all of our parties are fielding candidates. ODM is fielding, Ford Kenya, Wiper, and ANC. And we are sharing votes. And in that way we lost to Jubilee. Not only in Nairobi, I'm just giving you the example of Nairobi. In several other places, even in Western Kenya, and in Kisii, in some other places which are very obvious areas where we would have won seats, but because we were all campaigning against each other. And we were, see, take for example, Langata constituency. Our candidate lost with 200 votes. A Wiper candidate got 5,000 votes. So we have done the postmortem and look at how we lost the seats and what is it that we can do to revamp the party. We have also said we must get the youth more involved in the management of the party affairs and women, okay? So we must give them opportunity. So what happens is that the incumbents don't want to be challenged. They will tell you that, oh, we just want to do harmonization. Those who have defected, those who have died, let's just fill those positions. They said, no, we must have genuine elections. We must allow the upcoming people to get involved in the party elections so that they can also have opportunity to get experience.
Now, a completely different question. You are the African Union Special Envoy for Infrastructure. Does it bother you that we as a country spend so much of our tax revenue servicing debt owing to, mega size infrastructure like the SGR, for example, like in the financial year of 2018, 2019, out of a total expenditure of 2.4 trillion, 375 billion went towards servicing loan repayments. Does this bother you?
You mean in Africa?
I'm talking about in Kenya, the kind of infrastructure that we invest in leaves this country, highly indebted.
Yes. Yes, it is true that we are spending a lot of money on paying the debts. The issue is it value for money? And that's a big question.
Is it, in your view?
It is a big question, because I think that some of these have been inflated. When I became Minister for Roads and Public Works, I found when the rate of doing a standard tarmac road 1 kilometer was 50 million shillings. I moved in and I did my own due diligence and I reduced it to 20 million shillings per kilometer. And even widened the gauge. So we are getting better quality roads at a much less than 50% of the cost. See? So that reduced the general costs. And we were able to finance. Then we also did improvement in terms of our revenue collections. I tell you what's happened in this country. You see, there are two issues you must address: the issue of revenue collection and the issue of expenditure. You see, the revenue officers are the boys in town. They are the ones who are buying apartment blocks. They're the ones who are driving the latest models of cars. They're the ones who are building castles in rural areas. They're the ones who are building skyscrapers in the village buckets. Okay? If you do due diligence, you'll find that all that money is money which has been acquired irregularly or corruptly. Revenue officers, that is, no, not revenue, the procurement officers are seconded to each ministry from Treasury. All of them have got their private companies which are procuring on behalf of the government, and they are procuring at inflated prices. So when we got into government with Kibaki initially, we sent all of them home and did due diligence, only retained the good ones. Then the collection went up. And the collection went up, and the expenditure, I mean the rate at which you are buying also went down. So all of a sudden, we had sufficient money to do our development.
So you feel there's more corruption now?
Yeah, of course. We were 95% of our capital expenditure was domestically generated. We were only borrowing 5%.
You mentioned the revenue officers, but what about the big boys and maybe girls? Who else is eating?
You see, what has happened here is that at the end of this new constitution, they have created 2 layers of bureaucrats. The ministers are technocrats. Then the permanent secretaries are also technocrats. So they're even competing who is the returning officer, or sorry, the accounting officer in the ministry. Okay? And they are not going to parliament to be accountable. You know, when we were there, ministers were members of parliament, okay? They were politicians. So they're only dealing with policies. And we have got professional permanent secretaries who are recruited by the Public Service Commission, who are doing the management of day-to-day affairs of the ministry. They are as accounting officers.
So do you feel the Jubilee government is failing?
Therein lies the problem. That's why they have this problem. And see, you take, for example, the SGR. See, when we left government, we had already awarded it to the company. You see, it was a grand coalition government project. We conceived it, we did the feasibility study, design, tender, and we awarded it at $2.7 billion. When they came in, they cancelled it and then retendered. They awarded it to the same contractor, but at $3.5 billion. Then it went to $4 billion, it went to $4.3 billion. No wonder the rate of payment is high.
Why do you think, why the big difference between what you had achieved through your tender and what the Jubilee government has done? What's going on? Why that suddenly sharp, which the taxpayer has to pay for?
Go and ask them.
But you sit with them.
But what I'm saying is that at that time, I think they will tell you.
They don't tell you yourself openly in your private conversations with them?
I don't want to speak for them. But I think that is one of the issues, things that we are trying to correct.
Now, just talking briefly.
But the thing is that, you know, in Africa, infrastructure is a major challenge. And that's why, you know, I'm dealing with Trans-African highways, Trans-African high-speed railway, the open skies, the water transport.
But our neighbors are doing in Ethiopia, in Rwanda, I think even in Tanzania. They're not paying as much as Kenya is.
Yeah, so that is what we must ask ourselves.
No, that's what I should ask.
It is not right.
Yeah.
I'm just telling you, because I have been myself Minister for Energy, I've been Minister for Roads, Public Works and Housing. And I'm just saying that it does not have to be what it is. And I think that's why the President is angry and saying that this animal must be slayed. Okay?
So the President is angry, you say they're eating, so who's responsible?
So what I'm trying to say, that's the one we want to deal with.
Who is this?
No, I'm just saying that animal is the one we want to deal with.
Is that animal a person?
I don't know.
There cannot be wildlife, right?
We all accept that there is a challenge.
Right.
Okay? It's a challenge. And
so in your view, the President recognizes this?
Because he recognizes.
Why can't he do something about it?
He's done a lot of work. What he's done, for example, he's revamped some of these institutions. The Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, the Directorate of Public Prosecution, the Directorate of Criminal Investigations have all been revamped. You can see new faces who are actually very committed.
Are you confident, therefore, that things will improve?
I think that things are definitely changing. You can see some changes happening. Now there's this other side, the investigations and prosecutions are being done. The other side now you've got the judiciary, which also requires reforms.
What's the problem with the judiciary?
There are challenges there. First, they are blaming funding only. They're giving you so many excuses why cases are taking too long. But you ask yourself why, because they've got special cases, for example, for corruption. But they're not hearing these cases speedily. You find cases doing rounds. Take example, for example, this case of the Akashas. If they were here, they would still be free men. The Akashas were actually getting police protection. I've seen police in front of them, their houses, their homes in Mombasa. Okay? They're taken to the US. Within no time, they have confessed. They mentioned the people they were bribing, including the judiciary, to keep them out. Okay? So now, right now, somebody's arrested, you've got a batteries of lawyers, some of them members of parliament, rushing to go and defend them. Then now, they should not sleep in remand. They are sick. They have been taken to Kenyatta or Nairobi. The court is so quick in giving bail to get them out of me, you see? Then they just go out and then the case will never be heard until evidence is lost.
You seem to be describing a broken system, a lot of corruption, as you mentioned, in the judiciary, in awarding of tenders and things like that. Do you offer advice?
Definitely. I also offer advice. See, I saw the Deputy President saying that opposition is dead. It's not. Opposition is very alive in Parliament. What was happening?
But half a leg is in the opposition, the other half is in government with BBI. That is yourself.
I'm saying that the other time I used to talk from outside and highlight areas of corruption publicly. I used to challenge the government directly. Now I can tell them things have gone wrong here and there, and action is being taken. You see, so it's more effective this way, that they are taking action quickly to arrest the situation. Okay? But what you want is to institutionalize it so that you've got a system that is working. Okay? So I have sympathy with the judiciary. They face certain challenges, I've told them, but they also require reforms to be able to deal with these cases speedily, and also to ensure that there are some convictions. Because right now there are so many of these cases pending before the judiciary. There are no convictions. They keep on deferring them. And some of those who are doing this are being promoted. Some of those very judges who are guilty of corruption are getting promotions. So there are certain things that we need to change. Okay? Because like Judicial Service Commission consists just of judges. Okay? so they are oversighting themselves. Okay? So the Judicial Service Commission also need to be reformed. Just like
and these are issues BBI might address?
Yes.
Now, what do you think, who or what might be the biggest stumbling block to BBI, in your view?
Personal considerations, the people who look at how is this going to affect me or my chances going forward. These are some of the people. Because remember, in 2010, when we were passed the new constitution, we had the Reds and the Greens, okay? We were taken to a very difficult campaigns to get the constitution passed. Now you'll find that some of the people who are opposing that constitution are now telling you that there is nothing wrong with it. That is quite okay. You just now want to create jobs for the people. So that basically shows you the hypocrisy that exists in this country. We believe that if you bring changes, let's bring changes for the good of this society. and for posterity, not to serve the interests of individuals. Like Raila Odinga is here today, he's not going to be there tomorrow. So we're not doing it for Raila, for Uhuru, or for anybody. We are doing it for the future generation of this country.
Now, as we come to an end, just one quick question about the world of sports. I know you're a big football fan yourself, and if I could start with Gor Mahia, you know, one of the oldest football clubs in Kenya. They are struggling financially. You've been patron there for a long time. Can't you help?
I am having problems over that issue. I've told the president as much that our sport is actually suffering. It's not just soccer. Whether it is hockey.
The general administration of football in the country.
Not just administration, but yeah, the general administration of sports generally. Whether it is athletics, whether it is rugby, whether it is hockey, it is soccer, basketball, and so on. They are all having problems. So Sport Pesa had issues, but at least Sport Pesa was helping some of these institutions. They were sponsoring. Now there are completely no sponsorship. So we are facing a situation where some of these clubs might just have to fold up. So I have raised this issue with the government. There's the sports fund, but there were also a problem. I think they were board, but the board also want to be administrator. So there's a problem in disbursement of funds. The funds are not flowing properly to the institutions.
Okay, we've come to the end, but I want to give you one more last opportunity to tell Kenyans, because they are watching and listening, what will you be doing after BBI is implemented?
Well, after BBI is passed, not implemented, then you start the phase of implementation. So I will have some role to play if I'm asked to play some roles in implementing the BBI, because we just don't want to leave Kenya with a paper. We want to.
If you're asked to play a governance role, will you be willing to serve this country again?
I'm always ready to serve this country in any capacity. Okay, if I have energy, I will be able to put that energy to use to assist this country. At least my sense of patriotism demands.
Including at executive level?
No, you are asking me another question differently, and I'm not going to answer that.
As we close, I've watched you sing songs of Harry Belafonte. I think he's someone you you love. I've seen you perform a lot. You can close this discussion with one of your favorite Harry Belafonte songs, if you still have the energy.
Harry was, when we were growing up, Harry was up there. You had Cliff Richards.
Yes.
You had Elvis Presley. You had Jim Reeves. You had Ray Charles. Although then there was also Louis Armstrong and so on. But Harry was really my favorite. And my best there is the Jamaica Farewell.
How does it go?
Round the Bay of Mexico, where the sun shone daily on the mountain top, I took a trip on a sailing ship. When I reached Jamaica, I made a stop. But I am sad to say I'm on my way. Won't be back for many a days. My head is down, my head is turning around. I had to let a little girl in Kingston Town.
You've been to Kingston Town?
Yes.
Well, from the singing leader of the opposition ODM party, former Prime Minister Raila Odinga. Thank you very much indeed for this conversation here at your residence in Karen. And that's it from this edition of NTV Weekend Edition. I'm Joseph Warungu on behalf of former Prime Minister. Thank you for watching.
Well, very many thanks, Joseph Warungu. That song indeed brings a lot of memories, though my favorite is Jim Reeves. Thank you so much for watching. It's nearly 2 hours of that exclusive interview between our consulting editor, that is Joseph Warungu, and Right Honorable Prime Minister Raila Odinga, former Prime Minister Raila Odinga, who's also the ODM party leader, live from Karen. Thank you so much for the crew that has been hanging out there, just braving the chilly weather at Karen. But there's so much that we can pick from that conversation. A lot of picking points there, but we want to close. But before we do that, we just want to break some news here, and this has just happened quite a few moments ago, and it's been trending actually. NBA basketball player and legend, and one person who has inspired quite a lot of people, Kobe Bryant, has died in a helicopter crash in Calabasas, that is in California. And this news came in Sunday morning in America, and Kobe was traveling with at least 3 other people, others are saying 4 other people, in his private helicopter when it went down and a fire broke out. Emergency personnel responded, but nobody on board survived. 5 people are confirmed dead, and it's meant to be understood that Vanessa Bryant, the wife to Kobe Bryant, was not among those on board. Eyewitnesses have said that they heard the helicopter's engine sputtering before it went down. The cause of the crash is still under investigation. Kobe has famously used that helicopter to travel for years, dating back to when he played for the Lakers, and he was known for commuting from Newport Beach, California to the Staples Center in the chopper. And Kobe Bryant is survived by his wife, Vanessa, and their 4 daughters. And Kobe recently has been seen quite a lot in a lot of NBA games with his daughter, Gianna, a rising basketball star, playing herself there, and their youngest daughter, Capri, was also just born June 2019. It's a sad way to start the year, especially for the sporting world and for the lovers of basketball, and virtually everybody knows who Kobe Bryant is. The Lakers famously retired both of Kobe's jerseys, number 8 and 24, the only player in team history to receive that honor. And he also won an Oscar. He's quite a legend, and that's a big loss for the sporting world. Well, that's all we had for you. We wrap it up now. Many thanks for watching again NTV's Weekend Edition, and many thanks also to my sign language interpreters, David Agondoa and Flora Atieno, who have been holding on from 9 in the evening. My name is Dennis Sokari. Have a pleasant evening. Good night.